Examination by Ms. Clark. And Detective Lange, good morning again. You're reminded you're still under oath, Ms.
Sure.
Clark.
Sir, we were talking earlier about the Reeboks that the defendant pointed out to you on June the 13th.
Yes.
Okay, now I think you already testified that you took them at that point.
Overruled foundation.
You took them at that point from his closet, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and then where did you go?
I proceeded down to the first level and out to my vehicle.
Do you recall, sir, about what time it was when you did that?
I believe it was approximately 6:15, 6:30 p.m., somewhere in there.
All right, when you left the residence, when you exited the house at Rockingham, did you see Mr. Fung anywhere?
No.
Did you know if he was even still there at Rockingham?
Overruled.
I don't believe he was.
All right. Now, we were talking earlier about just before the break, about the walkthrough on August 27th with the defense team.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cochran mentioned something about a knit cap that was pointed out to you by one of the investigators, or the criminalist for the defense.
I believe it was by Mr. Cochran himself.
Okay. And did you seize that knit cap that he pointed out to you, sir?
No.
Why not?
That cap was in the house on the upper level in front of one of the kids' rooms, and it appeared to be one of the kids' caps.
A child's cap?
Yes.
Did you ever ask that a tire track expert look at tire tracks in the rear alley behind 875 South Bundy?
No.
P38.
All right, sir, do you recognize what's shown in P38 on the screen now?
Yes, it's looking in the alley in a northerly direction behind the Bundy location.
And is that the alley behind 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
Okay, now is that alley, is it cement or is it asphalt?
It's asphalt.
And you indicated just now, sir, that you did not ask that a tire track expert examine the alleyway behind the location of 875 South Bundy.
That's correct.
Okay. Could you please tell the jury why not?
It's a very commonly used surface. There are many, many tire tracks superimposed over one another, and there would just be no way to distinguish one from another.
And have you ever, well, when you were out there, did you look at the alleyway behind 875 South Bundy?
Yeah, I wasn't objecting with regard to this area that relates to your expertise in this witness. We're talking about two separate things.
Overruled at this point.
Did you yourself look at the alleyway behind 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
Were you able to observe any distinguishable tire tracks yourself?
Nothing distinguishable.
To your knowledge, sir, is there any way to tell when tire tracks are made?
I don't know of any.
One of that question, beyond this, more foundation, this witness.
Sustained. Do you want to do a little more foundation with this detective?
Yes, Your
Tire
Honor.
tracks.
Sir, have you ever asked that tire track experts be called out to a scene? to
Yes.
examine? And have you consulted and conferred with them concerning their findings at any particular crime scenes?
Yes.
On how many occasions, sir? Approximately.
There haven't been that many, quite frankly, 8, 10 maybe times the most.
And have you consulted with them about what they look for in tire tracks?
Yes.
And have you consulted with them about what they're able to tell you by looking at tire tracks?
Yes.
And have you ever, have they ever testified in any of the cases that you have prepared or conducted the investigations in?
Yes.
Based on your experience then with them, sir, are you aware of whether or not you are able to tell, they are able to tell whether, when tire tracks are made?
No.
Overruled. Overruled.
No.
No what?
I've never heard anyone be able to testify to the age of a tire track.
All right, sir. Now, you were asked also by counsel about whether or not any examination was done on the dog, Nicole's Akita, on his teeth to see if he had bitten anyone recently.
Yes,
Are you aware of any kind of examination that could ever tell you that?
I've never heard of one.
Now, you indicated that earlier on cross-examination as well, that when the detective or Officer Hyder spoke to Sydney Simpson, that's the little girl, Nicole's daughter.
One of the officers did, yes, I don't recall the name.
And I think you indicated that you asked Denise Brown to speak to her, to Sydney? It's Foundation.
Oral.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you prepare a report of your request of Denise Brown to speak to Sydney Simpson?
No.
Okay, first of all, why didn't you write a report of that request?
The results of the interview were negative. There was no reason to.
Oral.
Okay, why didn't you have an officer speak to Sydney?
I was informed by Denise Brown that both children were under the care of a child psychologist, and that they not only thought it would not be a good idea for me to interview the children, but they would not permit it.
Does that continue to be the case, sir?
To my knowledge, yes.
Oral.
All right. Also, you indicated on cross-examination, sir, that you asked Detective Ron Phillips to speak to Officer Vasquez concerning Sydney Simpson and the contact that she had with the officers at West LA Station before she was picked up later in the morning. You recall that?
I believe so.
And you indicated on cross-examination that you made no report of Detective Phillips' conversation with Officer Vasquez concerning Sydney Simpson's behavior at the station. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Why was there no report written concerning Sydney Simpson's conversation or behavior at the police station?
There was nothing more to say. The report had already been written.
Can you explain that, sir?
The report was written as to the interview by the female officer. It went no farther than that. From that, I made an inquiry with the Brown family.
Okay. And then, so you attempted to follow up what was in that report through the Brown family?
That's correct.
I'm sorry. So, after you read that report, sir, what did you do?
I contacted the Brown family.
Okay. And you made some request of someone in the family?
Yes.
What was that?
I requested that Denise Brown and the family talk to Sydney regarding the statement.
And did they do so, sir, at your request?
Yes.
And as a result of having done so, what happened?
I received a call a few days after that from Denise Brown, and she stated that she...
This is hearsay.
Did the information you received from Denise Brown cause you to generate any further reports, sir?
No.
Or conduct any further investigation, sir?
No.
Or attach any significance to the report written by Officer Hyder and Vasquez?
No.
Sustained. Sustained. Curious to disregard the last question and answer.
All right. When you were at Rockingham, sir, I believe you indicated that you were nearby when Detective Phillips made the phone call to Chicago to notify the defendant?
Yes.
And who were you with at that time?
I was in the vicinity of Arnell Simpson.
Okay. Now, On cross-examination, sir, you indicated in response to one of Mr. Cochran's questions that Arnell told you that Mr. Simpson was in Chicago, but that she told you that subsequent. What did you mean by that?
Oral.
By that, I meant that Arnell Simpson told me that after she made a telephone call to Kathy Randa.
Okay. Prior to the phone call that Arnell made to Kathy Randa, did you ask her the defendant's whereabouts?
I don't believe I did.
Did someone ask her?
I believe my partner did.
Okay. And what was her response?
Sustained.
Did she give you any information concerning where the defendant could be found?
Oral.
She didn't know.
No. That'll be stricken. Question is, did she give you any information, yes or no?
As to his whereabouts, no.
Next question.
When you were at the location, sir, at that time, approximately 6 a.m., did you go upstairs to look for Mr. Simpson or any possible injured victims?
No.
Why not?
By that time, we'd been informed that Mr. Simpson was in Chicago.
Oral.
I'm sorry?
Been informed that Mr. Simpson was in Chicago.
Okay.
There's no need to go upstairs.
So when you first entered the house, sir, how long did it take from the point of entry into the house with Arnell Simpson to the point when the phone call was made to attempt to locate Mr. Simpson?
It was a matter of minutes. Wasn't a long time at all.
Was there any search conducted prior to that phone call?
The only thing I did close to a search was I entered the housekeeper's quarters.
The maid's room?
Yes.
And why was that?
To check on the welfare of the housemaid if she was there or injured or whatever.
So what events transpired between the time you entered through the rear door and you made the phone call to try and locate Mr. Simpson?
I walked through the house, through the kitchen, into the maid's quarters. I checked that. I came back out. Arnell Simpson was in the kitchen area with Detective Phillips, and at that time they were making phone calls.
Now, when you entered the house, sir, who was with you when you first went in through the back door with Arnell?
Detective Phillips, and I believe Detective Van Adder was behind us with Furman.
I'm sorry, Detective Furman?
Yes.
Where was he?
He was behind us with Cato Kalin.
And then you entered the house, is that right?
Yes.
At the time that you were making that, Detective Phillips was making the phone call was on the phone with Kathy Randa and then later the defendant. Was Mark Furman standing by you?
I don't believe he was.
When was the last time you saw Mark Furman prior to making the phone calls?
At the time I entered the rear of the house.
And after that point, did you see Detective Furman when you were at the time that the phone calls were being made?
I don't recall seeing him at the time, no.
When was the next time that you actually saw Detective Furman after you all entered the house through the rear door?
It was at the time that he approached me
And did what?
and asked me to step outside with him.
All right. Now, did you see Detective Furman have a conversation with Mr. Kalin?
Yes.
Now, were you and Detective Van Adder the lead investigators there that night?
Yes.
So what did that mean in terms of how you guided the actions of the other officers present?
What did that mean and how it guided the other officers?
Yeah, were they allowed to just go ahead and do anything they wanted to investigation-wise at Rockingham or at Bundy?
No, they understood that we were taking over the investigation.
They understood.
Well, it's a conclusion by the witness as to what they understood. Why don't you re-asking your question, Ms. Clark?
What was your understanding, sir, of what their abilities to investigate and make decisions at Rockingham or at Bundy on that night?
That the decisions would be made by my partner and myself.
Okay. Now, did you see Detective Furman go in and speak to Mr. Kalin?
That's correct.
And did you approve of him doing so?
Yes.
And why?
We had more areas to check. Mr. Furman was in front of me, and he knocked on the door. It was most logical that he speak to Cato Kalin.
And had you not approved of him going in to speak to Mr. Kalin, what would you have done?
I would have prevented it.
He knows what he would do, Your Honor.
Call roll.
I would have prevented it.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a series of questions about the cross-examination concerning the coroner. I'll show you some pictures.
Your Honor, this is going to be Exhibit 45.
All right.
All right, first of all, sir, you see that one white shoe in the bottom portion of the photograph?
Yes.
Are you aware of that? Do you have a recollection of whether there was any blood in the area of that white shoe?
There was none.
Next.
Exhibit 45C.
Again, you see the white shoe in the bottom of the photograph.
Yes.
Do you know whose shoe that is?
I believe it's a photographer, Mr. Rokar.
And do you have a recollection of whether there was any blood in the area where that shoe is in this photograph?
There was none.
Exhibit 45D.
All right, and you see the shoes in this photograph, sir?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the location, with the condition of the location where those shoes were on the night of June the 12th, early morning hours, June the 13th?
Yes.
Any blood in those areas, sir?
The only blood is...
The picture speaks for itself.
Or will anything that appears to you to be blood?
Okay.
Can we
Do you-
approach with regard
let
to
me-
this photograph? Because I think it's vague based upon the question.
Call roll.
How can the photograph be vague?
Proceed.
Okay. Oh. Do you have a recollection of the appearance of the location where those shoes are shown in this photograph from your observation on the early morning hours of June the 13th?
Yes, it's a walkway above the bodies going west.
Okay. And do you recall, by looking at this photograph, where on that walkway these shoes are?
Yes.
Was there blood in that area, sir?
No.
I'm going to strike that answer in that area. That's vague.
Where the shoes are was the
Really?
question.
In that area?
Where the shoes are.
Well, that's suspicious.
All right. Ms. Clark.
That's it. Yeah, thank you. You were also asked, sir, whether or not the hands of the victims were bagged. Do you
That's
recall
correct.
that?
That's correct.
Were they bagged, sir?
No.
Can you tell us, please, why not?
It's been my experience that one would bag the hands of a victim who's involved in a gunshot to be preserved for gunshot residue examinations. These hands and the entire bodies were preserved in plastic sheets. I'm not aware of any bagging of hands other than for gunshot residue examination.
Can you please explain to us, sir, what is gunshot residue?
Gunshot residue is powder or molten metal materials that could be part of a backblast from a handgun that could transform themselves on one's hand if they were in contact with a firearm if it went off.
So what will an expert detect if he examines the hands of a victim who has been shot or fired a weapon?
Exactly. Foundation. hearsay?
Overruled.
Speculation?
Overruled.
Whether the possibility exists that that particular person would have been holding a handgun when it was discharged.
In this particular case, sir, by the time the coroner's investigator arrived, was there some determination made as to the cause of death?
Yes.
And what was that?
Slashing and stab wounds.
And was there a determination made with respect to whether or not any firearm had been used?
Yes.
And what was that?
In my opinion, none had been used.
So was there any reason to bag the hands of the victims?
I saw none.
Overruled.
I saw none.
Now, the entire bodies of the victims were bagged?
That's correct.
And what was the purpose of that?
To preserve any trace evidence or any other evidence that might be on the bodies to be examined at the coroner's office.
And would that procedure of bagging the bodies, what would that do with respect to any trace or fiber evidence that may have been on the bodies?
It would maintain it.
Now, the nail scrapings of the blood found under Nicole Simpson's nails,
Yes.
yeah, was DNA testing conducted on those scrapings, sir?
Yes.
And are you aware of the results of those scrapings, the DNA tests on the nail scrapings?
Yes, I am.
And did that testing reveal the blood to be hers?
Yes.
Follow that question, Your Honor.
Staying calls for
This
hearsay.
witness keeps a voluntary answer. You
No.
strike that?
No. Calls for hearsay. Juries to disregard the last question and answer. Proceed.
With, did the results of the tests of the nail scrapings under Nicole Simpson's nails cause you to conduct an investigation into any other suspect?
No.
Now, you spoke earlier about wounds on the hands of Ron Goldman. Do you recall that, sir?
Yes.
And I think you also discussed scooped out dirt in the location that was near to his body.
Yes.
What, if anything, did that tell you, the wounds on the hands and the scooped out dirt?
During the autopsy, I observed contusions and abrasions to the rear of the hands of Mr. Goldman on the fingers and to the rear of the hand area itself. It indicated to me that he was probably involved in a defensive struggle, that he was attempting to fight back and that he was flailing his arms and his hands, very possibly running them into the tree or perhaps the metal rung fence or one of the stumps, sustaining those wounds. I observed very little abrasions or contusions directly over the knuckles.
What's the significance of that? I mean, why were you looking for abrasions or contusions over the top of the knuckles?
If one had abrasions or contusions directly over the knuckles, it would indicate to me that perhaps that person struck their assailant with a closed fist.
And did you see any evidence of that on the hands of Ron Goldman? That any evidence that would indicate to you that he had struck the person who attacked him with a closed fist?
Nothing to me that was overly significant. Again, there was quite a bit of bruising, contusions, and abrasions all over the hand, but most of it was on the fingers and the back of the hand.
Now, what about those keys? You found, you indicated earlier on direct and on cross that you found keys near the body of Ron Goldman. You recall that?
Yes.
Counsel was asking you whether keys could be used as a weapon. Okay. Now, first of all, sir, how many cases have you had involving murder by means of a knife?
By means of a knife?
Yes.
I'd say in excess of 100.
And how effective do you think a set of car keys or a set of keys would be to defend oneself against a knife attack?
I would.
It causes speculation.
Overruled.
I wouldn't think it would be effective at all.
Now, the fact that you found the keys by the body next to Ron Goldman, did that tell you anything with respect to whether or not those keys, in fact, were used in any in any way as a weapon or as a defensive measure?
I don't believe they were. I believe it indicates to me that there's a strong possibility Mr. Goldman was surprised.
Overruled.
Objective form is for the speculation.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Can you say that?
It indicates to me the strong possibility that Mr. Goldman was surprised in the attack.
And drop the keys?
Yes.
Is I'm
Rephrase the
and
question.
as a result of being surprised, did what?
And dropped the keys.
Something, sir, about the condition in which you found Ron Goldman. Can you give me?
Your Honor, you're going to need to cut the feed. This
Yes.
is Exhibit 43E.
All right, sir. Look at the shirt of Mr. Goldman. Is that the condition in which you found him, sir?
Yes.
The shirt appears to be pulled up in that photograph, is that right?
Yes, it does.
What, if anything, did you conclude concerning the movements of Mr. Goldman based on the condition of his clothing and the position of that shirt pulled up as it is?
Objective form, what's the foundation of the shirt?
Overruled.
That he was in a defensive struggle and that the assailant very possibly had grabbed that shirt and pulled it up to where you see it.
Was the shirt, were the sleeves pulled over his hand or the shirt pulled over his hand, either hand of Mr. Goldman?
I believe it was pulled down a bit.
Did you ever consider the possibility, based on your observations, sir, that Mr. Goldman was dragged at any point by the assailant at that scene?
I saw no evidence of drag marks, no.
All right, you were asked also about lividity on cross-examination. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you please explain to us what that is?
Postmortem lividity is the movement of the blood in the body to its lowest point after death, usually occurring within 2 to 3 hours, caused by a gravitational pull.
Now, what does lividity have to do with the time of death?
The time of death,
Well, without foundation at this point.
What does lividity have to do with the time of death?
It's without foundation, counsel.
Oh, I'm sorry. He heard your ruling and I didn't. That's sir, how many homicide cases have you had?
been involved directly or indirectly in approximately 250 investigations.
And in each of those cases, sir, have you had occasion to discuss the investigation with the coroner?
Yes.
And have you had discussions with the coroner in each of those cases concerning the subject of lividity?
At times.
Have you read articles or books about the subject of lividity?
Yes.
And have you heard testimony from coroners concerning the subject of lividity?
Yes.
Now, can you tell us, sir, what does lividity have to do with the time of death?
I know of none.
What is lividity used for?
Lividity can be used to determine whether or not a person was moved after they'd been killed.
And how's that determined?
As an example, if one
Overruled.
if one were found in a supine position or on their back and lividity was present over the front part of their body, it would indicate that they'd probably been moved after death.
Was there any indication that either the body of Ron Goldman or Nicole Brown had been moved after the time of death?
I saw none.
And was any brought to your attention by the coroner at the time of autopsy?
No.
Now, when you made your observations concerning lividity, sir, where were you?
I was at the crime scene.
And I assume then you were that was based on your observations? It's going to be leading. You made observations concerning lividity at the crime scene, sir?
Yes.
And were the bodies of either Ron Goldman or Nicole Brown washed or unclothed at that time?
No.
Were they both clothed?
Yes.
All right. The blood that was in the walkway leading up from the sidewalk to the body of Nicole Brown, was there, the blood that trickled down? I think you indicated earlier you saw paw prints in that blood?
Yes.
Okay. Could you see, was there an obvious source to you of that blood?
The source to me was victim Nicole Brown.
Now, how many autopsies have you attended, sir?
Perhaps in the neighborhood of 150, maybe more.
Is it, whose job is it, sir, to determine whether or not stomach contents should be saved?
Coroner's office.
Overruled.
It's the coroner's office.
Are you a doctor, sir?
No.
Is it your job to tell them what to do with respect to whether you save stomach contents or not?
Sustained.
Have you ever told a coroner to save stomach contents or not to save them?
No. Overruled.
No.
Now, were you present at the autopsies in this case, sir?
Yes.
Did you observe what, if anything, the coroner did with respect to the stomach contents of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown?
No.
You did not observe that?
No. What they did to them subsequent,
No, during the autopsy.
I observed the coroners examine the contents.
Of each, that is for Ron Goldman and for Nicole Brown?
Yes.
They did that in your presence, sir?
Yes.
And did they discuss the findings that they made based on their examination of the stomach contents with you?
I believe so.
Was there any indication that Ron Goldman had a full stomach at the time of autopsy?
No, objection from this question. You're saying,
Overruled. You was there. You were there when this was examined?
Yes.
Overruled.
I don't believe so.
Was Ron Goldman's stomach full at the time of autopsy, sir?
I don't believe so.
Based on the examination of the Well, let me ask you a different question. Why you indicated on cross-examination that you did not investigate the issue as to when Ron Goldman had his last meal. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you tell us why not?
It appeared to me that he had just left his place of business. The relevance just wasn't there.
Why not?
Because I wasn't aware that he'd had a meal. I was aware that he just left his place of business. It really didn't come into play.
Wouldn't it have helped you to determine time of death if you'd found out when he'd last eaten?
In that particular case, I don't see how.
Why not?
Because it didn't come into play. I was more concerned where he'd been prior to being killed.
Could you explain that? I don't understand.
Could I have that question again, please?
Sure.
Maybe I don't understand.
Yeah, I asked you why you didn't investigate into whether, what time he had his last meal. I asked you why you didn't think that determination would help you to determine more precisely the time of death.
Because I knew where he had been at approximately, I believe, 9:40 p.m. That to me was important. The meal wasn't. I knew that it was apparent to me that he'd gone home and changed and went to the Bundy location.
And what did that have to do with not investigating when he had his last meal?
What did that have to do with?
Right. Why did that make determining when he had his last meal less important to you? The fact that you knew when he left his place of work,
Object to this question.
what did that have to do with it?
Overruled.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes. I'm trying to understand why it became less important to find out when Ron Goldman had his last meal because you knew when he left his place of work.
Object to that question. Vague.
Do you understand, hold on, do you understand the question?
I don't know if I fully understand this. No.
It's vague.
Okay. It must be. You said that you... All right, sir. You were asked on cross-examination about questions about whether you investigated into to find out when Ron Goldman had his last meal in order to pinpoint his time of death.
That's correct.
Based on your experience in all homicide cases, how precise is the determination of time of death based on the analysis of stomach contents?
It's not precise.
I'm just going to make a comment. I'd like to word on that.
Overruled.
Beyond the scope, there's no foundation. Beyond the scope of this privilege is execution.
Overruled. He said it's not precise. That doesn't tell us a lot either way. Ash will stand. Proceed.
In your experience, sir, and based on the prior homicide experience you've had, what is the most narrow time frame you've been able to be given by a coroner based on the analysis of stomach contents?
Object.
As to,
There's relevant material as to what's happening, because I'd like to hear it.
Overruled.
as to time of death, I've never known time of death to be under 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. Now, I'm just talking about stomach contents.
Stomach contents?
Yeah, stomach contents alone.
I'm going to strike that.
Sustained. George, to disregard last question and answer. Non-responsive.
No. Based on your experience, sir, hundreds of homicide cases, how precise has the coroner ever been with respect to time of death based solely on the analysis of stomach contents?
Sustained. Sustained.
Has it ever been your experience that the coroner has been able to pinpoint the time of death based on the analysis of stomach contents?
Never.
That's what you suggested.
Overruled.
Form that question.
That's overruled.
Never.
Never?
I've never heard of that.
So when you determined that, did you make some determination based on your investigation as to when Ron Goldman was last seen alive
Yes.
by the public,
By the public?
by other people?
That's correct.
And when did you determine that to be?
Well, we already had testimony from the people from Mezzaluna Council. I mean, I'm making that point to Ms. Clark. Don't we already have that in the record when he was last seen?
This is just foundational, Your Honor, too.
All right. Proceed. I
Did-
think he's already testified to the time, though.
Yes.
Thought he said 9:40,
Oh, okay. Okay. Did,
about 3 minutes ago.
I'm getting lost in my own shuffle.
Okay.
Okay, you determined the time that Mr. Goldman left Mezzaluna, correct?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. And did you also determine from the first officer on the scene when his body was found?
Yes.
And what was the time lapse between those two times, when he was last seen and when his body was found?
Approximately 2 hours and 30 minutes.
What is the most, in your experience, sir, have you ever had a coroner testify to a precise time of death to the minute?
Never.
Overruled.
Material, speculation, hearsay.
Overruled.
Never.
What is, in your experience, has a coroner been able to do in terms of time frame in any homicide case you've ever handled?
I object to what the coroner could do.
I think we ought to have the coroner tell us about this.
Well, Your Honor, it was gone into on cross-examination.
No, I understand that, but
This is the last question
the last question?
on this area. You know,
What's the last question?
on the coroner issue. What was it? What is, in your experience, what is the narrowest time frame the coroner's been able to give you with respect to time of death?
That's really vague, because that depends on so many different things. Each individual case is different.
Right, and that's why I'm just asking for, in his experience, what's the best
I
they've
know.
ever been able to do?
I think it's vague at this point. There's a 352 objection, because then he's got to tell us what the facts and circumstances are in that case.
Let me ask a different one then.
All right.
Let me try
Ask a
some-
different last question.
A different last question. Okay, you determined that there was a time frame of approximately 2.5 hours between the time Ron Goldman was last seen and his body was found. Is that correct?
Yes.
Has a coroner, in your experience, ever testified to a time range less than that as a time of death?
Sustained.
What coroner?
Sustained.
Move on.
Mr. Cochran asked you on cross-examination several questions about what time the coroner was called. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Based on your experience, sir, if you had called the coroner at 4:30 when you arrived at the scene, could the coroner have told you whether the murder occurred at 10:15, 10:30, 10:15 versus 10:30 versus 10:45?
No.
Sustained. Hold on. Sustained. Juries to disregard the last question and answer.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Sure.
All right, Detective Lange, when you hear one of the parties making an objection, would you please wait to answer the question until I've had a chance to rule on the objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Clark.
All right, sir, if you had called the coroner at 4:30 a.m. when you first arrived at the scene, could you have allowed the coroner into the crime scene to examine and remove the bodies?
No.
Why not?
Because at that time, we hadn't completed our crime scene investigation.
And you also indicated that you saw candles burning inside the residence when you looked inside 875 South Bundy.
That's correct.
Did you have any idea what time those candles were lit?
No.
Did you have any idea how big they were at the time that they were lit?
No.
How fast or slow those kind of candles burned?
No.
Do you happen to know whether you can tell a candle burning for 2 hours, how different it looks from a candle burning 2 hours and 15 minutes?
I would have no idea.
Right, you indicated that you did not consider the ice cream to be important, or you didn't consider it to be evidence. Do you,
Overruled.
Do you recall testifying to that in response to one of Mr. Cochran's questions on cross-examination?
Yes.
Do you-
That's the problem.
Overruled. Mr. Cochran, overruled.
Can you explain to us, please, why you did not consider it to be evidence?
I was aware that small children lived at the location and that could very possibly be eating ice cream, leave out half-eaten ice cream. The cup itself was not in the vicinity of the bodies or the crime scene. It was in the rear of the location. It was in a secured area at the rear of the location. It was unclear whether it was melted or melting ice cream, but lumpy. Lumpy doesn't necessarily mean melted. And I just had no tie-in to what occurred in the front of the location.
Okay. Well, if you had, if you had photographed the ice cream, would that have given us, what kind of evidence would that be for us in terms of its melted or frozen condition?
It's just speculation. We don't have
Sustained.
any.
Could you tell whether the ice cream had lumps in it?
Sustained. At this time, which time? When he
Oh, I'm
looked at
sorry.
it, were there lumps in it? Had there been a photograph, can you tell if there are lumps in it? That is a vague question.
Shall I pick one of them?
I can think of 3 more.
Okay. Did you, when you observed the ice cream, sir, on the rear banister, did you notice whether or not it had lumps in it or chunks in it?
Appeared to me that there might be a lumpy area in the center, yes.
And did you to conduct some investigation into what kind of ice cream it was?
Yes.
And have you ever heard of the kind of ice cream sold by Ben & Jerry's known as chocolate chip cookie dough?
Objective, pharmacy suggested.
It is sustained.
Did you... Have you heard of chocolate chip cookie dough?
What investigation did you do with regard to the ice cream?
Your Honor,
Well,
object.
I did that one.
Overruled.
Object.
I just want to
You
move this
conducted-
along, counsel.
You conducted some investigation concerning the ice cream that was found in that Ben & Jerry's cup, sir?
Yes.
And did you attempt to determine what kind was in that cup?
Yes.
And what kind was it?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
This one calls for speculation.
Sustained without foundation at this point.
How did you conduct that investigation? What did you do?
I contacted the Brown family and inquired of them if they would speak with the children.
Did you, based on that investigation, make an attempt to observe a particular kind of ice cream?
Yes.
Overruled.
And what kind of ice cream did you pick out to observe?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
And what did you observe about that ice cream?
That after it had melted,
Overruled.
it appeared to be lumpy.
You indicated, sir, in your grand jury testimony, it was pointed out something regarding the lighting on the porch at 875 South Bundy.
Yes.
You recall that?
Yes.
And you were referred to page 292. I'm going to ask you to refer back to that passage that was pointed out to you by counsel on cross-examination and ask you a few questions about that.
Maybe we don't worry.
I'm sorry.
We don't know.
Same thing,
Page
292,
That goes-
from line 16 down to the bottom?
Certainly.
Thank you. Now, you indicate, tell me, sir, are these your answers in response to the following questions? Line 16, question, sir, when you arrived, can you tell me if you noticed the lighting in the front of the building there? Was there any? Answer, there was a porch light up the porch. Question, up on the landing? Answer, yes. Question, does that illuminate the walkway? Answer, yes. Question, in any effective way? Answer, it would have illuminated it some way. The lighting, I wouldn't say was excellent, but it was far from being dark. It was illuminated. First of all, sir, with respect to those questions and answers, you recognize those as having been posed to you and those being your answers at the grand jury.
Yes.
And what walkway are you referring to?
The walkway that proceeds along the north side of the residence, westerly, east-west, past the front entrance.
Are you referring to the walkway at the top of the steps or the walkway that leads down to the sidewalk?
At the top of the steps, near the front entrance.
So the porch light that you referred to, sir, referred to in that passage, did it illuminate the bodies of the victims in any way?
No.
Did it illuminate the front walkway that goes from the steps down to the sidewalk at 875 South Bundy?
No.
Now, oh, maybe we should start the video. You, you were asked about the overlapping numbering, sir. I'm going to show you this again. All right, you see the numbers in, this is people's 53,
Yes.
115, 116, and 117.
Yes.
And those, on People's 53 that you just looked at, 115, 116, and 117 were markers on blood drops on the rear gate?
Yes.
Okay, and now on People's 48, you have markers of 115 and 117 on, obviously, these are blood drops, but they're not on the gate.
Yes.
Can you explain to us, first of all, the difference between a photo ID number and an item number?
Photo identification number, as it appears here in items 115 and 117, are for identification purposes of the item. The other numbers are for purposes of when they are booked into evidence. That's an evidence number that goes on the property report.
Now, the numbers shown in People's 48, sir, what are these? Are these photo ID numbers or are they item numbers?
Those are photo identification numbers.
And are there reports that indicate that these are photo ID numbers shown in People's 48?
Yes, that would be on the property reports.
And are the items marked in these photographs with photo ID number 115 and 117, have they been given item numbers that are different from those numbers?
That's correct.
And is that reflected in reports as well?
Yes, it is.
And are all these reports that you write, generate, you give copies for myself and defense counsel?
Yes, these particular reports were generated by the criminalists, but yes, they were turned over.
And then with respect to